Hello everybody and welcome to another Mission Makers vlog. Today we're going to be talking about knowing your audience. Now Arma presents a very unique issue involving the wide variety of playstyles available in Arma. On one hand, you have what is most often represented in milsim units where they attempt to portray Arma in its most realistic fashion, taking the means of simulation as literally as possible in order to provide the most realistic scenarios possible. While on the other side of the same coin, you have something as arcadey and carefree as King of the Hill. Neither one is objectively more fun. In fact, what is fun? Each of us define what is fun for ourselves, but we do not define what is fun for each other. It's important to remember that our personal preference of playstyle is not imposed on everyone else. If there is a large enough group in the community that prefers a similar playstyle, then the community will naturally create a game mode that prefers that playstyle. For example, King of the Hill was created with the fact that many people wanted to play that type of game. Even if some people who prefer a more milsim type aspect might find it even repulsive that anyone would play such a primitive style of gameplay. However, whatever type of playstyle you prefer is not binary. There are many people who are between both categories, between both extremes, who like an organized cooperative experience, but also don't like to get too intense with the lingo and phonetics. There's no doubt that milsim is certainly more restrictive on your freedoms, although it is in the name of organization and a well-executed operation. But restrictions can also make people anxious, which is why there are many people who also oppose that type of playstyle. And an individual may not always stick with the same playstyle. Someone who plays King of the Hill might decide to join a milsim unit and like it, and then maybe after a year or two, they'll get bored of it and go back to playing Wasteland or Exile or something else. People's preferences change as much as people join and leave a community. Someone who never flew helicopters might suddenly decide that all they want to do is fly helicopters. But thankfully, Arma can provide for almost any type of gameplay preference. Of course, after you learn how to play the piano on your keyboard and control your character without having to actively think about it, you can pretty much play any game mode you want. Of course, even new players can choose any kind of playstyle that they like. Even new people can end up in something as intense and regimented as a milsim unit. But the important thing for you to remember as a mission maker is, what are the people playing your mission looking for? Now, releasing a mission publicly, you may not have to worry about this as much, as people will come to you. But you still have to actively think about what kind of playstyle you want that mission to have. Do you want it to be realistic, arcadey, or somewhere in between? Because no matter what, there's gonna be one part of the community that likes it and another one that doesn't. It's the old saying of, you can't please everybody. If you're making a mission for your unit, then you have a better idea as to what type of playstyle they prefer. Of course, this is why units typically like to at least give the person a few weeks before they make missions for that unit. In fact, most units reserve that right to veterans because they know the type of playstyle that unit prefers. And the fact that Arma has such a vast number of communities within it, allowing you to choose anywhere in between the simulation and arcadey feel, that you can find what fits for you and stick with that. And it's not even a big deal if you join a unit and ultimately find that it's too much on one side of the scale for you. Hopefully, people don't take for granted what the Arma community has, which is people dedicated day and night to keeping hundreds of communities available for people to join and cater to certain playstyles, which can't be said for a lot of games. So what makes the difference when making a mission between realistic and arcadey? Well, for example, it's dependent on how many enemies you give them, what type of weapons you say are available. A lot of times, the level of realism is dictated by the rules of the unit itself, whether or not you're allowed to pick up enemy weapons, get into the gunner seat of vehicles that you weren't dictated to, or simply operating machinery or leadership roles that you weren't technically trained to do. Some units have intense amounts of training. Other ones just go out and play every week. And even with how much training they do, even that doesn't dictate how realistic the missions are. But when it comes to the mission making itself, it's a good idea to think about what type of environment you want them to fight in, what kind of explanations you might have for their questions, and why they're doing what they're doing. In some units, they require intense briefing documents that explain every bit of what's going on and what intel they have. Other ones don't even have briefing documents. Some of them don't even have briefings at all. But what's important is that you play the Arma that you want to play, and you don't let other people tell you that it's the wrong way. Yeah, there may be objectively cheesy things about things like third person in PvP, but that's why first person only servers exist. So when you're making missions, really try to take into account what the general perspective of the players are. Think about, in general, what is this group of players looking for? And what is most fun to them? Personally, breaking realism doesn't break the fourth wall for me. It doesn't bother me as much as it does other people. But that doesn't mean that my method of gameplay or making missions is objectively correct. Typically, you join a unit that has a similar playstyle to you anyway. So, in most cases, if you make something you think you'd want to play, chances are it's something everyone else would want to play too. But try not to stray too far from that ideal. And that's all for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.